Hey, it's me, Maggie J. Today with a review of episode 3 of American Horror Stories. This one is called Drive-In. I've been trying to film this video since Saturday. It is now Tuesday, so hopefully today will be the day that I can get it all done. Extra special thanks to my sister for helping me make these amazing cue cards. I feel very official right now. Anyways, about this episode, I have to say, I loved it. Not so much at first though. It was a little like an after-school special with all the sexual peer pressure going on, but the journey was definitely worth the time, and I think it turned out really nice. Well, as nice as a massacre can be, you know. To start at the beginning, sort of, this is my absolute favorite opening entry scene, whatever you want to call it. AHS is well known for their title sequences and how creepy and cryptic they can be, but I think this one is the best one of all of them. It starts off looking like the Fallout 4 drive-in, abandoned, dilapidated, and rusty. Even this ticket booth looks kind of like the Red Rocket gas station. But then the sun sets and this amazing liquid blood effect comes through and drenches everything. It makes it all look brand new. The marquee highlights Naomi Grossman, who has a small part in this episode, but is better known for her portrayal of Pepper in the earlier seasons. So I really appreciated that little nod to the past. Really, everything about this intro is just so cool. I loved it. I'm gonna give a quick synopsis before we dive into all of the gory details, so don't worry about spoilers just yet. This story revolves around Chad, a high school boy who's trying to get his girlfriend Kelly to have sex with him. A classic tale. His friends tell him women need to be afraid before they want to do it, so he should take her to see something scary. Chad knows the horror offerings of the last years have been wanting, but what luck. The scariest movie that's only been shown once is about to have its second premiere at the Starlight Drive-Thru right here in this very town. And his friend just happens to have enough tickets for all of them to go. How convenient. Now, the deal with the movie is the first time it was shown, the people in the theater went completely ape shit and started viciously attacking each other. A whole bunch of people were hurt, some people died, and investigators determined it must have been the movie itself that caused the mayhem. So they deemed it unfit for viewing and all of the prints were completely destroyed. Or so they thought. And then the rest of the story unfolds from there. Spoiler alert for the rest of the episode, so tune away now if you are not ready. At the beginning of this episode, Chad and Kelly are watching a Bob Ross video while making out. Later, we find out he told her it was a challenge, that every time Bob says happy trees, they have to kiss, which is not a challenge that I've heard of, but at least these kids are being creative, I guess. Chad keeps trying to get her pants off, but Kelly is adamant about not being ready. He says, "It's been 6 months. You didn't make what's-his-face wait for 6 months, and waiting this long is not normal. So what's your problem?" Which is like all of the worst things he could have possibly said, so Kelly leaves. The next day at the skate park, Chad and his two besties, Quinn and Milo, are discussing how boys of their ilk could get laid. Chad suggests he could stop trying to coerce Kelly and wait until she's ready, which is the exact right answer, thank you. But these are teenage boys. They're hatching a whole other plan, and it's called Rabbit Rabbit. Quinn tells Chad women need to be a little scared, which is why horror movies are so classic for date nights. Chicks get a little scared and they need a little cuddling, and boom, in there. So Chad's only chance to get with Kelly is to take her to the Starlight Drive-In to watch a movie that comes with its own urban legend of being the most terrifying movie ever. Well, I don't know if it's a legend, but it is a hell of a story. According to Quinn, the film is called Rabbit Rabbit, and it was only shown in one theater back in 1986. During the movie, the audience got violent for some reason and started attacking each other. When it was over, 6 people were dead. It was really a scene. When investigating the cause of this massacre, it was determined that the movie itself caused the craziness, something to do with the audio and visual encoding and messing with the brain. The creator of the film had to testify in front of Congress to explain what happened and was given some prison time, and all of the copies of his film were seized and destroyed. But The Starlight Drive-In is having a one-night showing of this movie, so at least one copy remains. And Milo stayed up until 3:30 in the morning to make sure that he could get everybody tickets. It's a little weird to announce an impending event like this. Like, I mean, this didn't come up amongst you three boys anytime before right now? Would Chad have even been told about this movie had he not been complaining about his girlfriend not giving him any? Never mind, this is a short. Answering questions like that is how a short turns into a long. And that's not what this is, so never mind, I take it back. Later, Chad is looking up information about this movie, Rabbit Rabbit, and we are treated to a C-SPAN video of an exchange between the movie's creator, Larry Bitterman, and Tipper Gore, who for some reason appears to be in the seat of power at this congressional hearing. Okay. He's basically thanking her for all of the publicity he's giving his movie, but then she hits him with the notice that his production company has agreed to destroy all of the copies of his movie and never let it be seen again. Larry goes into a rage and jumps over the desk to attack her and gets in some really good licks before security can take control of the situation. As they drag him away, he says he won't stop until the whole world sees his movie, which is important to remember for later. At school, Kelly and her best friend Dee discuss Chad's persistence, and Dee tells her to stop being afraid of the dick. But Kelly puts her off as well. She's gonna do it when she's ready, and that's the exact right answer. Thank you. Chad comes up to apologize to her, but she says she hates apologies. So he offers to take her to a really cool movie event that's happening the next night, and she agrees. Cars are lined up outside the drive-in at sundown, while a woman with an eye patch screams at people from the outside of the fence to not watch this and escape while they can. The captions tell me that her name is Ruth. She says that she lost her boyfriend and her eye back in '86 at the first showing, but nobody pays her much mind. And the drive-in needs this night to be successful because they spent all of their money buying the film for this premiere, which hasn't been delivered yet, in case you needed a little extra tension over the next couple of minutes. They sneak in a jump scare on us while Kelly is fixated on Ruth yelling about the movie. The ticket taker's head suddenly appears inside the driver's window. Of course, there's also an audio prompt that accompanies this sudden scene here, but neither of these two take it very seriously. Once Chad and Kelly are parked, they head to the refreshment stand. There they run into Milo and Quinn. At some point, someone must have explained the curse of this movie to Kelly because she was not present for the explanation from the friends, nor did she do any Googling about this, but she's also not asked any questions like, what curse? Or, there's an urban legend about this movie? And it seems like she's pretty aware when she asks, how upset are you guys going to be tomorrow when everybody's still alive? Quinn tells her, there's always tomorrow, because 4chan says there's another screening in another town tomorrow night. Then Dee shows up and Kelly runs off to go buy popcorn. Again, each of the friends separately encourage Chad and Kelly to just go ahead and get it over with, but at least now both of them are on the same page of, when it happens, it happens. And that is the exact right answer. Good job, you guys. Mind your business, other teenagers. Dee assures Kelly she is going to devour that Milo boy ASAP. And I wholeheartedly believe them. Finally, the movie shows up in a black van. While it's being carried in, Eye Patch Woman gets Chad's attention and tells him to kill the fuse box. He doesn't want to go through what she went through. He blows her off, but she yells out some tips as he's walking away. It starts right away, she says, and don't look. In Chad's car, Kelly lets him know that tonight is actually their 6-month anniversary, not the other night when he was trying to get in her pants. So they immediately jump into the back seat and, and don't give a hoot about this movie. In another car, Dee and Milo are also doing their own thing where they're not really paying attention to the movie. Quinn is all by himself with his hot dog when the movie starts. The movie begins and the whole parking lot starts flashing their lights and honking their horns, which I have never seen. This is not really a thing that happens, right? Please let me know. Anyway, so the movie starts and its effects kick in right away. Most people appear mesmerized by it, unable to look away. Even Dee, who's putting in some neck work, is stealing little glances between the steering wheel. Meanwhile, Ruth sneaks into the projector booth and sees the big fat electric cord of the projector laying in the middle of the floor. She's gonna sneak up and unplug it right behind Verna's back. The young male employee catches her though and yells. Verna turns from the window where she's been watching the movie and her face is all messed up. Thick black veins zigzag across her skin and her eyes are all black. She pins Ruth down and grabs a pair of scissors from the desk and plunges them right into her last good eye. Oh man. The young attendant soon becomes Verna's next victim. And then that's the end of that scene. We cut to Dee and Quinn right at the moment Dee bites his junk off and then spits it right back in his lap. And then she laughs. Her eyes have also turned black and her face has those thick black veins on it as well. In Chad's car, they hear the screaming, but they can't see anything due to the fogged up windows. The car beside them looks to be a rockin', but that's probably because they're killing each other and not getting it on. Besides, that's a Jeep. You'd need to be quite nimble and hefty to be putting that kind of bounce into those springs. Kelly says this must be a part of the show, but then one of those crazed people breaks through the window behind Chad. Kelly jumps into the front seat and looks mostly unfazed as she fumbles with the keys, and Chad tries to kick this guy back out the window. Finally, she gets the car going. Chad pushes the intruder out and they're on their way out of here. But then Dee flops onto the hood and starts using their face to smash through the glass. Ouch. Now, navigating a drive-in can be tricky because there's usually only one exit out of the entire place, and it is completely surrounded by all that tall blocking fencing material. And sometimes they employ landscaping tricks to make sure that the angle of the car is right for looking at the screen, and to make sure that people drive slowly. Add to that some fogged up windows and a best friend smashing their way through the windshield with their face, and it all adds up to Kelly can't see shit, and she soon crashes into the broadside of the snack stand, killing Dee in the process. That was that. Kelly and Chad are both slightly stunned by this crash, but are able to get out of the car and into the building before the crowd of, I don't know, do we call them zombies? I don't know. Whatever you want to call them, they're coming. Chad and Kelly find their way to the projection room, and it's got a heavy door that locks, so they think they'll be safe there and they can call for help. But neither of them have their phone, and the landline is dead. Of course it is. So while Kelly looks for useful items, Chad looks out the window at the movie. You can kind of see his face going slack, like he's about to be sucked into the rabbit hole. But then Verna attacks Kelly, and he snaps out of his trance and attacks her with a movie reel. Apparently this is the strongest movie reel ever created, and Chad winds up demolishing Verna's entire head with this thing. Then he yanks the rest of the film off of the projector so at least no more people can catch this plague. Then he takes a nap for a few hours. Maybe he's the kind of person who needs to sleep when they're stressed? I don't know. As the sun rises, the couple discuss what they're going to have to do. Kelly reminds him that if they call the cops, they're going to be locked up all day being questioned. And there's a whole other screening taking place that night that they need to put a stop to. She grabs a shotgun that she found inside this projector room / office and says, "Let's find him and cancel night 2. Chad peels the return address from the shipping label on the carrying case of the film, yanks the scissors out of Ruth's head, and off they go. In the war zone that was the parking lot, Quinn appears, looking like he'd been through a war. Chad tries to talk him out of this phase, but the thick veins and black eyes do not fade, and Quinn inevitably attacks. Chad, scissors still in hand, drives them into Quinn's chest, and now these two lovers have both had to kill their friends. Oh, such a bonding experience. A bit later in the day, Kelly and Chad arrive at a very small camper trailer that has a brand new Rolls Royce parked out in front of it. Inside, Larry Bitterman is watching the news coverage of the drive-in, yelling that he's made cinema history and that his chickens didn't just come home to roost. The rest of his sentence is cut off by the entrance of Kelly with her shotgun and Chad in his bloody clothes. "Who the hell are you?" he asks, and Kelly says, "Chickens, I guess." Which is, in my opinion, the funniest line in this entire presentation. At first, Larry tries to distance himself from the happenings at the drive-in, but Chad and Kelly heard him gloating about the outcome when they walked in, so they are nonplussed. They demand the other copy of the film that he has, the one that's going to be premiering that night. But Larry assures them that the drive-in screening was a one-off, and he was against it happening there because, obviously, not everyone at the drive-in can be guaranteed to be paying attention to the movie. Then he gets a little bit of a different look in his eye while he's asking them to describe the carnage that took place at the drive-in. He wants to experience his triumphant, glorious moment, but he can't. So he wants to hear their eyewitness accounts. Obviously disgusted by him wanting to watch a massacre in progress, they refuse him and question his motives. So he tells them what inspired his masterpiece. He says his intention was a horror movie where the horror isn't on screen, it's in the audience. I can say it, that's a dumb fucking motive. And he spent many years studying film and subliminal messaging and sketchy experiments ran by government agencies that taught him all kinds of tips and tricks for eliciting responses with just audio and visual input. Then he funneled all of that knowledge into this film, Rabbit Rabbit. When he came into the editing room to find his lead editor using the film cutter to chop her fingers into little pieces, he knew his film was ready. The original premiere in '86 was just the beginning, or so he thought. Then that thing with Tipper Gore happened and he was put into prison for 15 years, which is actually a really long time for assault. While in prison, he kept studying methods and such, and when he got out, he said he applied what he learned to a work print that he squirreled away, which I have no idea what that means because I have never heard the word work print ever before. So I assumed he was talking about like production or marketing or something because he can't actually work on this film. All he can do is like sell it or distribute it. Because despite all of the reports of carnage and killing and whatnot that goes along with this movie, people are still ready to line up and see it. So he tries to dress up this experience for Chad and Kelly, saying that they are witnesses to history and that people will want to hear their story for the rest of their lives. And he's really given them a big win here. Chad and Kelly are determined to not let any more people get hurt by this movie though. So Kelly raises the shotgun and blasts Larry right in the knees. Not where I would have aimed, but it gets the point across. Chad demands the rest of the footage. He knows what was shown at the Starlight was not the original copy because there are no splices on the film, meaning it was a copy made from the original, which is excellent attention to detail, Chad. Good job. I'm not sure why Larry goes ahead and tells them where the print is. He's most likely going to die because he's bleeding pretty profusely from the knees, and if the outside location is any indication of where he actually is, he's probably pretty damn far away from any kind of help. But he points to the box that the original is in and then gets really upset when Chad puts the reels on the stove and sets them on fire. He begs them to stop and apologizes. But as we know, Kelly hates apologies, which I thought meant she was going to blast Larry in the face with her trusty shotgun. But I guess it just triggers her to say that line because there is no further action taken except for her and Chad exiting the camper. Well, the camper is on fire with Larry inside, who's got his knees all blown out from the front. But he starts laughing as they leave, yelling at them that this is only Act 1 of his masterpiece and that his name is going to go down in cinematic history. He's got a Rolls Royce. Ask him how he got the Rolls. Ask him. which makes him sound like an absolute crazy person. But as we soon learn, no, he's completely correct. He will be remembered forever. He does own a brand new Rolls, and how he could afford the Rolls is why he will be remembered. And so on and so on and so on. The young couple could not care less about what he is saying. They stumble back to their stolen vehicle as the small camper explodes. Later that night, Chad and Kelly are finally getting after it. Meanwhile, a new title is released on Netflix and the whole world is going mad for it. Literally. Because it's called Rabbit Rabbit, streaming worldwide. Outside the window you can see explosions and fire and hear sirens and see that society is collapsing into chaos, while Chad and Kelly are just living in the moment and loving it. End scene. So, did you love it? Or did you really, really love it? Or are you one of those people who doesn't like shorts because they're just not enough for you? Sometimes I fall into the third category, but for me, this episode was awesome. It could definitely be cleaned up a little bit detail-wise, but given the rigid time constraints that these shows must comply with, I'm okay with a little less supporting details and cutting straight to the point. Like I said at the beginning, I was not a fan of the peer pressure, but that never swayed Kelly's resolve to follow her own timeline. And this whole story revolves around when will they? So without that, we probably wouldn't have wound up with this ridiculous story that unfolded the way that it did and kept me thoroughly entertained. Okay, I do have to say that the Tipper Gore element is kind of weird because she was never a member of Congress, so having Larry testify to her is just historically ridiculous. Tipper did testify in front of Congress and is likely responsible for all those explicit warning labels that were such a big deal in the 90s. So you can take that as you will. I just think that having him testify to Al Gore would have been fine. He is the more laughable person in that relationship. And if they really wanted the scene of Larry throwing Tipper Gore into a wall, they could have had it happen like on the way to or from the meeting or something like that. Like it just, you didn't need to make it look like Tipper was in charge of the whole Congress, because it really took me out of the scene and I had to give myself a little mini history lesson right there. So I don't think that was the greatest decision. I can't tell you what was the greatest though. Her name is Kelly. She stayed true to her character all the way through this story. She didn't waver from her intentions, no matter who was pressuring her to do something else. She refused to be pushed around or glad-handed after being disrespected. She was not afraid to use a shotgun to solve her problems, and ultimately she knows that authority is never going to get the job done the way that it actually needs to be done, so she's got to do it herself. Somebody give that girl a medal. Overall, I give this 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend, especially if you are a fan of the horror genre, because this thing is littered with Easter eggs and references and cameos from people you'll probably recognize. Let me know if you like this episode as much as I did, or you can tell me all the reasons why you hated it. I'm here for both. But that's all that I have to say about this, so thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more videos about what I waste my time watching, be sure to click the appropriate button so that you can be aware of the next time I post another video. Y'all stay safe out there.